It's Caroline Stevens seeking the truth, back in the saddle after a bit of a quiet period, shall we say, over the summer months. Well, on part two, I've got Ice Age Farmer, also known as Christian Westbrook from California. And we're going to be talking food, probably my favorite topic, I have to say. So we've had a quick change. We're into part two. We've got lots to cover that we didn't cover in part one. China, is it a big threat, or really are the two governments, the US and China, actually working together with the Silk Belt Road, together with the UK? Should we have anything to fear from China, or as they say, are they all in it together and the people are being left out of the equation? Over to you. There's a starter for 10.
Well, again, thanks for having me on, Carolyn. And I would say both. I think certainly they're all working together, and China is a globalist controlled organization. They've been pointed at and described as the case study, the child to which the rest of the world should aspire to be like. But they're also, when you look at their most recent sort of initiative, it's called the Clean Your Plate Initiative, where President Xi Jinping announced that food should be regarded as precious now. And they've actually codified this so that if you go out to a restaurant with four of your friends, there's five people at the table, you're no longer allowed to order 5 dishes. You can now only order N-1 dishes. So 4 pieces of food for the 5 of you. You're also not allowed to post on social media pictures of yourself eating food. They've got AI already built in now that says, hey, you need to value food. It's very precious. And so they're really going hard to the hoop on this social engineering around not eating food. Also within the Clean Your Plate initiative, it's stunning. They've actually deployed these artificially intelligent trash cans with facial recognition, such that as you throw away your trash, it will weigh it and determine whether or not you have thrown away too much food. And if you have, well, this ties now into the social credit score, about which you and I have heard all about, and it will penalize you for throwing away too much food. So you can see that all of these agendas actually it's a web with these seemingly disparate strands, but particularly this year, as there's a blitzkrieg of all of the technocratic agendas rolling forward under the COVID-19 excuse, these seemingly disparate threads have really come together to weave a spider's web of totalitarian control. And the initial signs of this clean your plate style agenda are definitely woven into for instance, the EU's farm to fork initiative. Some of the UK also just unveiled a forward-looking agricultural policy where it pushed hard on automation and artificial intelligence and smart farming, getting as much data, precision farming as possible. In the US, the Rockefeller Foundation, so you can tell it's always these unelected boards of bureaucrats, right? The EU, no accountability, no one elected them, but here's what you're going to be eating going forward. And then in the US, it's Rockefellers. It's not the elected government. It's this think tank by virtue of all of the money that they have. But there they are, and they're crafting this guidance, the Rockefellers Reset the Table initiative, which clearly is a tip of the hat to the World Economic Forum's global Great Reset that they're pushing right now. So this whole reset language. And the Rockefeller document, like the EU farm to fork policy, and like the UN IPCC recommendations on which all of these are based, specifies we need to stop eating meat. We need to push people to eating insect-based proteins. We need to get people to rewild their farms, like we were talking about in part one. This is an integrated agenda which, while it takes different forms in different parts of the world, is one totalitarian push to get total control over everyone. So I think, yes, while they're all in on it together, China does provide for us a nice case study, a bellwether of where they'd like to push the rest of us. And so we need to pay attention to that.
And we are doing business with China far more than the wider world realizes. I think the UK set up a prosperity fund in 2015 with China, and we've even got lords in the House of Lords. We've got MPs. They're married to Chinese communist dignitaries. we are not as separate as they will have us them make it out. So when you talk about China, then I don't like the sound of having 5 people going into a restaurant and only being able to order 4 meals. That is scary for me. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, as we know, because with that social credit system, my understanding is that you can be having a conversation with somebody who may be of lower standing, social standing than yourself, who hasn't got all the credits on their passport or their smartphone, and then somebody will interrupt that conversation, a telephone operator, and will explain to the other person, well, are you willing to proceed with this phone call because this person is of lower standing than you? And it's like, wow, talk about the Truman Show. I think I saw that on Netflix. And talking about Netflix, should we be advertising Netflix when you've got, who's one of the directors? Netflix, is it some guy who says, what's he called? Matthias? He's an American guy, isn't he? Let me just check. I've got something written down here. And, we're talking about the Bilderbergers here because let me have a look. What's the guy's called? His Matthias Dopfner. He classes himself, he says, I'm a non-Jewish Zionist. He is the director of Netflix, the kingpin of German media, and he's connected with Deutsche Bank, Vodafone, and what else is he? He's listed as an insider in various companies. Now, that's an interesting term, an insider, because apparently as an insider, if you're given specific information about those companies, then you can't trade on that information. But yeah, academics have worked out that those people who are classed as insiders strangely outperform those who are not insiders. So they all write the rules to suit the global elites. Who else is on the Bilderberg committee? You've got Peter Thiel. He's your Trump's #1 financial backer. He used to have a big part to play in Facebook. And now I understand he's got all this money built up in Palantir, which is all about artificial intelligence. And I think you might want to add something about artificial intelligence here, because I think he's set to float Palantir in the fall.
That's very interesting. And you do see a big push for AI right now. Of course, a couple of years ago, even Putin came out and said it's all about AI right now. The people that own the future are the people that build first the biggest, baddest AI and arm it with the most data. So the new currency for the technocrats, of course, the technocrats value data more than anything else. And just a couple of weeks ago, President Trump unveiled this new multi-billion-dollar packaging that is going to fund quantum AI research centers. And there is a big difference, Carolyn, between artificial intelligence, which you can just sort of say is, machine learning. It's a wide definition, right? And so there's some machine learning algorithms that will do things. If you give it data, it can find inferences and deliver some insights. But that is a far cry from what I think a lot of people in the truth community think of when they say AI. It sounds evil and scary and demonic. And that really isn't the case until you start looking at this quantum AI world. That's where they marry the machine learning and this tremendous amount of data, perfect knowledge of everything they're monitoring, with this quantum interdimensional thing that nobody really quite understands. And perhaps you've heard about the D-Wave computers that are kept in a super cold environment and have sort of a weird alien heartbeat as described by their own designer.
No.
It's fascinating. And these machines, they need, it's called a QPU. It's a quantum processor. It has to be kept at a near absolute zero temperature in order to work. And while no one knows exactly what happens, what they do know is that these processors work by distributing the computation across a virtually unlimited number of parallel dimensions, and then literally reaching out and pulling back some energy from these other dimensions. Whether those could be, just different versions of our reality, or heavens or hells, is undefined. Nobody seems to know that. And what's concerning about this is that we are inviting in extra dimensional entities to take physical control. And we know, Carolyn, that the powers that shouldn't be, these Bilderbergers, etc., have been working for years, channeling, for centuries, channeling off-world, extra-dimensional entities who are pushing these agendas, describing them to the people that are then implementing them. Because the heads of state that we see are not the people that are in charge. They're just doing the bidding of their masters. But what's happening now is that rather than going into weird spirit cooking sessions and seances with Aleister Crowley, they have now constructed these quantum processors that allow the demonic entities to actually reach into our physical realm and change things directly, to get direct access rather than going through a channel. And as Trump apparently gives billions of dollars to stand up 12 of these quantum AI sites, that means that they're giving all of the data, taking all of this knowledge, all of the surveillance, the climate tracing initiative that Al Gore mentions, where they have satellites monitoring in real time every square meter of the Earth, looking for carbon emissions so they can tell if you're running a methane plant, or they can tell if you're growing unauthorized plants. And they get little alerts in real time. They're taking that data. They want the digital currency data. They want the supply chain data. All of this is now being fed into an AI. It's called Project Salus, and it is unambiguously called it's an AI weapons system that the Pentagon has developed. But as they hook all of these things together, all of these systems that have been built up over time, now again, 2020, they're bringing it all together, and then they're pushing it right into these quantum processors that give the data and control over our supply chain to off-world extra-dimensional entities. And this isn't something, because it's kind of a leap too far for a lot of people. It's not something that I've talked a lot about, but when we are dealing with very clearly demonic and satanic agenda to take over everyone and to take total control, remove free will from humanity, and shape us into these transhumanist, genderless, weird creatures that can't resist. Bertrand Russell describes it through diet, injections, and injunctions. We will shape humanity into this weird mass that can't even form a resistance. They won't even be able to think straight. And so then we will rule them without any threat. And that's what they've done here. And yeah, the quantum AI is a step that really brings that agenda home, gives these entities which have been pushing humanity along through channeled messages. Now we're giving them total control directly. And that's an alarming situation.
Now, I've got a friend who always wants a paper trail. He's very much a scientist. In fact, he's a theoretical physicist. And he would be watching this now, or he will watch this when it gets uploaded onto videoband.nl, because that's where my videos have to go now. He'll be watching this and he'll say, Caroline, he'll say, where is the paper trail for this? Now, Christian, I know that you worked in artificial intelligence. What do I say to him? Because he will watch it and he will ask me.
Yeah, the first thing is that's why I wanted to be careful to differentiate the general term artificial intelligence and sort of the universe of machine learning, which you can do at any scale from this quantum intervention, where, again, if you look at the words of the people that run those D-Wave computers, they just say, I don't know how this works. All I know is it's going out into other dimensions and pulling back the answer. And so we need to, as people that think more deeply about problems, we need to really question into what dimensions we are reaching and why. And you can gain a little bit of insight also by looking at the CERN project and their attempts to break through the walls of reality into other dimensions and interact with whatever it is that they have dedicated many, many billions of dollars to try and do there. It's never quite clear, but a lot of people have done a lot of work. Anthony Patch, perhaps you're familiar with him, at trying to understand what they're doing there. And I think I think there are forces at work to break down the physical walls of this dimension and to invite in demonic spirits. And that's personally what I think is going on. Of course, it's difficult to find a paper trail that will bring that together. But when you do your research and then think deeply about this, and especially if you pray on it, I think you will come to the right answers.
Absolutely. I remember the celebration, shall we say? That's the promotion of when they opened. Was it the CERN? Was it 2015? They had demonically dressed entities, didn't they?
And they claimed that that was just some youths outside staging a weird thing. But I mean, yes, why they're performing fake sacrifices in front of the statue of Shiva is it's pretty it's questionable, certainly questionable taste at a minimum.
So when you said that you were involved in artificial intelligence, presumably you're involved in IT.
Yeah, I began so this was still at university. I got involved with a robotics and artificial intelligence program, and this is 20 years ago. So, while we're talking about machine learning, it was pretty elementary compared to what's done these days. It was just helping a robot figure out where he is and plot a course around the campus to show people around. It was a tour guide robot. But I'll never forget, I came in one day and we had done a lot of work on integrating the GPS with the odometers and with the sonar, and it took a lot of number crunching. And we were working with a team at NASA, and I thought that was really cool. I was 18 years old. It was really cool to be working with a team of NASA scientists. And then one day he said, actually, we were really impressed with that latest algorithm, so we gave it to the boys at the DoD for their shotgun robot. And I said, whoa, this is this is not what I want to be doing with my life, is arming shotgun robots to go into to do God knows what. And so I got out of there right away. Yeah.
So you're now programming. So let me just think then. The Bilderberger Committee, the steering committee, all these people are on there. They're involved in banking, airline industry. Now, actually, talking about the airline industry, of course, we can go back to the Green New Deal. I've got a lot of friends who are in the airline industry. Many of them have now lost their jobs. Of course, this could link in with New Green Deal, social credit system. Only certain people, the elites, will be able to fly in the future under the guise of carbon emissions, and the fact that, well, social distancing, if you've got to have 2 meters apart, in the future they could bring in a rule and say, well, actually, you're going to have to pay for 4 seats effectively before you fly. Now, it might not be like that at the moment, but you can see where things are moving. And so planes are not going to be economically viable unless you pay for 4 seats. So it is only going to be the elites. It's only going to be these 1 or 2%. Do you think it is just 1% of the community that has all the wealth? Or do you think they've got their, shall I say, their networks? Do you think it's slightly bigger than 1%? Or have you ever calculated it?
I think it's much less than that, actually, Carolyn. And I think if you look at the structure of the secret societies, I think they will reveal to you a similar power structure is the case here, where there's a level of, people just getting the work done. And in many cases, these are well-meaning people. And so I always say we need to have a lot of compassion for people who have been sucked into environmental movements or trying to, who may be out there advocating to shut down farms, but they just don't. They really are well-meaning. And so they really just need the information. And that's why I focus so much on spreading the word and trying to help these people figure out what's actually going on, because they've been weaponized. They are working against humanity's interests, even though they're well-meaning. So there's a huge mass of that at the bottom, sheeple, whatever you want to call them, but generally well-meaning. And so we really, I don't want to judge them. I want to try and help them and wake them up and pull them back onto our team and fight for us. And then, I think there are levels like in the secret societies where you go up and you get access to a little bit more knowledge, and then just enough to work with. And then if you go to the next level, maybe you even found out that what you were told before, in fact, that was completely wrong, but here's the new truth. This is the real truth. And so it goes as you climb the ladder, reaching that pinnacle of the pyramid. And, at the top, ultimately, I would say that, like we said, there are people who are getting their orders from extra dimensional entities. And that's why they do these ceremonies and sacrifices, is to appease and channel information from those that give them their orders. It's a truly bizarre situation. But then if you look back at history, this is where cultures, as they reach their apex and start to decline, time and time again, you see child sacrifice and weird seances and practices like that really start to take over the culture and poison it from the top down. The fish rots from the head down, as we know. So I think there is historical precedent that can help to understand, help to break through a sense of normalcy, when a lot of people would say, oh, there's no way our prime minister would drink that kind of adrenochrome or, whatever it's reality is so crazy that a lot of people are disadvantaged because they just can't wrap their head around that. But all we can do is keep trying to spread the word. And at some point, Carolyn, if you I hear this a lot, like, I tried Christian, but they think I'm crazy. You're like, no, I get that. I'm called crazy every day, constantly. I get it. But there is a point of saturation where, if I bump into somebody and I tell him something, he can call me crazy. But then Carolyn bumps into him and he calls her crazy, but he's already starting to think like, why am I hearing about adrenochrome all the time? What's going on here? And if we just all insist, if we just relentlessly forget our egos, yes, they can think I'm crazy. There's more important things. The future of humanity is at stake here. It's incumbent on all of us to go out and have these conversations relentlessly, because if we do that, we build upon each other's success, and people they won't be able to ignore the truth at some point. So, there's a lot. This is really one of the most important things I can say is just don't give up, keep spreading the message. Look at studies like the Ash conformity study, where they did a psychological experiment and people were, they rang a bell and everybody in the room stood up, and they had a subject in there who didn't know what was going on. It was a room of actors, and whenever they rang a bell, everyone would just stand up. There's no rhyme or reason to it, right? It's like wearing a mask, even though it doesn't work, but everyone else is doing it, so I guess I'll do it too. No, it's a bad way. That is the way that we will walk into our enslavement. And so in those studies, it took only one person to remove the mask, right? To not stand up when the bell was rung. And then the other people that were not actors in the room would say, well, wait a minute, he's not doing it. It doesn't even make sense to me. Why would I do it? And so the whole thing breaks down when one person resists. And if you're watching this program, you are that one person, and you have to resist what's going on. You have to have these conversations. That's it.
It's funny, actually, you say that. When you go into a public meeting, there's so many people, whether you're on your own or with somebody else, you watch people and they want to, if the people already sat in there, they want to go and sit next to them or maybe just one space away. Me, I'll just sit. I don't feel the need to do that. And people find that strange. And I tell you, you've got to have strength of character, to go into a supermarket and be the person, that one person who is not wearing a mask. I've had so many stares and comments, but it's not for the faint-hearted. Not for the faint-hearted at all, to be that person. But as you say, certainly during lockdown, we were all stood outside the supermarket. I guess it was the same for you. And we're all 2 meters apart. And we have now a new regime where we all have these circles in shopping arcades. You go down one side, come back another side. And the funny thing is, it's not, we drive on the other side of the road, and they've done it in the continental way, which I find quite amusing. I will just out of devilment, just go where I want to go. And I'm thinking, because at the other side, there's no shops. So there is no point. I would never have been walking down that side. And it's just and then people say, and then people start pointing at me. I said, well, this is crazy, isn't it? And they say, no, you must follow it. I'm thinking, this is just plainly not right. And of course, you do see a lot of stuff on social media about mask wearing, muzzle wearing, hood wearing in satanic rituals, and hand washing. I've hardly ever used that sanitizer as I've walked in. But you'll laugh. I did it the other day just because I had just been so worn down. You get so weary at the end of the day if for the umpteenth time somebody's, and the sanitizer had a plain pink dress, dark pink, and the sanitizer, it was at like my below, it was like at my knee level and where my skirt was still, and I pressed it and it went all down my dress. And I said to them, I knew I wasn't supposed to put this on, and it's just an inconvenience. Why do we? But there are hard times, because some of the public toilets are closed now, and they're being done away with on cost-cutting exercises. And also with COVID, some of the toilets have been shut. So the hand sanitizer has actually come in very handy just to have a bit of a spruce up. So every cloud has got a bit of a silver lining. I just feel sorry. You know, we were talking about artificial intelligence and the control of this 1%. And once, you know, like you've got your YouTube channel, thankfully. Once you lose that YouTube channel for whatever reason, and obviously you don't tend to lose it, well, basically you're a threat when you lose it. Not saying that you're not a threat or in any shape or form. But you then realize how difficult it is to get your material out on a different platform. For me, I'm on a platform which nobody's ever heard of. You can't subscribe to it. People will just so you don't get a notification. So when I've subscribed to you, and I'll get notified of, I'll get a pop-up, won't I, that your show's coming up. Otherwise, it would mean I'd have to go and look at your channel every day just on the off chance. So they do have a lot of control, don't they, these elites? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there's no doubt they have done their best to create these monopoly platforms and you know, some people call them the electronic ghettos. And there's a lot of truth to that. They've constructed these places and herded everyone over into the blue walls of Facebook or the red design of YouTube. And it's not a case where these are just private companies that are successful, right? Because we see when alternatives like Gab release a Twitter, I mean, Twitter is a very easy application to develop. It's a little tiny short update, some friends. Anyone could build that overnight. And so when Gab did that, when they said, fine, go build your own platform. Okay, we did. Well, they didn't like that at all. In fact, Apple quickly removed them from the Apple Store. So this totally disproves the notion that there's a free market and one company can do what they want. And if you don't like it, you just start up competition. No, competition is sin to these people. They've told us that. And they squashed out Gab. And then moreover, after removing their app from the App Store, Microsoft, on whose cloud Gab had built their server infrastructure, pulled it's called Azure, they pulled their hosting. And so Gab had to go find a different. So they were attacking the client and removing it from the App Store. They were removing the servers. It was a whole attack on the infrastructure that enabled Gab to develop. And it's clear when you look at examples like this of deplatforming at the platform level that it's a trap. It's a very well, as you say, very well controlled electronic ghetto on the internet. And that's why it's really important to take this information and this battle offline. If you wear a T-shirt around, and that way you don't even have to have the conversations. I know the conversations are uncomfortable. Like we said, it's not. I don't enjoy walking into the grocery store and getting those scowls, those looks of like, what's wrong with you? Where's your mask? If we're having to do it, you have to do it too, right? It's the crab mentality where no one's getting out of the bucket if I'm not getting out of the bucket, right? But what makes it worthwhile is, well, for one, it's doing the right thing, and we just have to. But every once in a while, someone with a mask on will see me and they'll say, and they just take off their own mask, and I can see the thought process. Well, if he's not wearing a mask, then I don't have to wear a mask either. And that's why that's the Ash conformity. That's the having an effect bigger than you are, and that's why it's incumbent upon all of us to do the right thing.
Absolutely. Talking about masks, I've not seen anybody take their mask off because I'm not wearing a mask. But what I do is I see people with obvious disabilities. You're not going to go up and upset somebody. But, you know, obviously people in mobility scooters or with crutches. And I'll say, and they're fiddling with a mask and you can see there's discomfort there, or they've got breathing problems. I'll say, look, you don't have to wear one, you know, and they're not aware. A lot of them, be elderly, are not on the internet. So they're not aware of these websites where you can buy a lanyard to show that you're mask exempt. So, I mean, the supermarkets, one of the supermarkets is now actually giving some of them away. But I mean, it took them weeks to do this, and there's no sign up because you can imagine they're actually giving them away free and everybody else has had to pay for them online. So they're not going to put a sign in the window for those elderly on the off chance. So it is difficult for the elderly because most of them will, by their 80s or 90s, have some sort of underlying condition. And yet it hurts me so much to see them struggle with masks in discomfort, you know. And it must be hard in America when, you know, you tend to having, you know, places like California and Texas, much hotter weather than we do here. That's been very much of a strain on people's oxygen intake.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I definitely have seen studies showing that children are adversely affected by wearing masks at a physiological level with the oxygen suffering, but certainly at a psychological level, it's just stunning to think that what is wearing a mask just to go outside? Like, what kind of message does how does that inform a developing psyche? And it's just not the world I'd like my children to grow up in. So.
No, it was. I saw a couple the other day, baby in the front pouch, looking up, and its mother's got a mask on. I just think, what sort of relationship is that going to develop into? I just don't know. Yeah. Christian, I think we've done a fair bit in part 2. Actually, will you come back ever again, or have you, or has this been sufficient for you? Will you come back?
I would be delighted to. It's been my pleasure, Carolyn, to speak today. And again, thank you for helping get the word out about the food situation here.
Brilliant. And would you like to remind everybody where they can find you, please, Christian?
Absolutely. IceAgeFarmer.com is the hub. That's my website, and it is privately hosted, so it won't go away, even if the Ice Age Farmer YouTube channel does disappear, like Carolyn's has, then you can find me there. I also have wandered over to bitshoot.com/iceagefarmer, and you can find my work there. There is a subscribe button on BitChute, so you can still benefit from the push notifications and emails that affords you. And thanks again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been really thrilled. I've got a website, carolinestevens.net. And as I say, I've got my videos now being hosted by videoband.nl/Caroline-Stevens/ Stevens is with a PH. Thank you, Christian. I'll bid you, good day to you. It's coming into the evening here, and I look forward to having you back soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye for now.